Hello everyone, so the UFC 311 is in the books and I wanted to make this video actually pre-fight, but I think it's still relevant, okay, especially given the result of the fight, of the co-main event. Obviously the main event was switched up on us and it was not obviously the ideal situation, and I think we got the outcome which was more or less expected, but I'll touch on that a bit later. So what I want to talk about in the co-main event is that I think Nurmagomedovs in general very much misunderstood one thing about Merab. Okay, they compared their journey with his journey. Okay, and this is what they have done with everybody else as well, and successfully so. But sometimes there are more details in someone's life that may not fit the bill of a standard situation. They look at a fighter, and if he has a loss, or especially losses, and especially the losses which you would label as not very close fights. Here's obviously Merab has a lot of the closer losses, especially in the UFC. Those of which you may argue that he actually won. And outside of the UFC, he has some losses which are perhaps not as presentable, right? And way did the Nurmagomedovs team looks at the fighter is that, look, if some guy beat this guy, then I'll find a way to beat him as well, especially if this some guy is not the highest level fighter on the planet today. And that in Merab's case, which I know in advance, turned out to be a wrong approach, because Merab's journey was a very difficult one, unlike their journey, at least on a athletic level. Okay, I mean, they were not born into riches or anything like that, but they had way better platform to actually develop their skill sets as well. And Merab, first of all, started in a team which, competence-wise, is definitely not up there in Georgia. And when he moved to United States, his skills were, in my opinion, quite limited. On top of that, I mean, he had his base, okay, which was judo, and to some level sambo, because a lot of judo guys, they cross-train sambo in Georgia. But his MMA skill set was not up there, and his also skill set that his base was not adapted to MMA as well. And when he moved there, that was clearly exposed. On top of that, as everybody kind of knows at this point, Merab was working on a construction, which may have helped him longer term, as he has stated previously, but in the short term, imagine going to the gym at night after you have been working all day on the construction. It's definitely not the optimal situation, to say the least, and that clearly has affected him. And since then, as soon as he kind of got his finances a bit in order and got the fight bonuses and was able to concentrate more, not more actually, full-time on fighting, his resume is probably as impressive as anyone's, and that's just a fact, or maybe more impressive than a lot of big names that you may actually come up with. It's a stellar resume, and I think stellar performances on that resume as well. I don't mean just the names, I mean how he fought them and how he actually disposed of them is impressive. On top of that, clearly, as I discussed in the pre-fight video, they kind of saw that, look, we can wrestle as well. He can wrestle, we can wrestle really well as well. We can grapple, we can strike, and therefore we should be able to stylistically beat this guy. On top of that, these losses gave them a lot of confidence, and I think this was kind of a bit of a mistake, especially given how this fight was like rushed and pushed, and as if that they knew exactly that fight was in the bag. And I'll be honest with you, in the private conversations, me and a lot of people in the know, we were like, are we missing something, or has Umar really honestly has not demonstrated his the ability to beat Merab yet, and or demonstrated anything yet, to be honest with you, beyond that he's a top level fighter. Okay, there are many top level fighters, but there are only few who are truly good. So I think those were the aspects which answer a lot of the questions that people may have. Is why was this fight rushed? Why did the Nurmagomedovs team think that they kind of had this fight in the bag? A lot of them spoke that way, including Umar. Umar had been talking about Merab, that he would give him the leg and he wouldn't be able to take him down, etc. And that even in, I think in the countdown show, he said that he's gonna break and make Merab tired and really smash him. Something that he hasn't done to anyone, let alone somebody with Merab's cardio. Okay, I mean, not anyone that I can remember right now, especially in the last few fights, including Corey Sandhagen, which, as I discussed, was a much better stylistic matchup for him, and he should have dominated the fight. And having watched his last two fights before Merab, Umar versus Corey and Almahan Bekzad, I think that's his name, from Kazakhstan. It gave me a lot of confidence, and I was also one of those people that thinking like, are we missing something? I think we're not, so let's see. But there was always a possibility of something like getting through, which in every fight there's a possibility of that. But that has been a story of Merab's last few fights, including against Sean O'Malley as well, that I just didn't see Merab losing unless something would just land that was not supposed to kind of land. So there's that. Let's discuss the main event as well. Let's touch on it. Clearly, there's always this moment that, look, when there is a fresh guy walking in, he's gonna shock the world. I mean, because there's not a lot of pressure on the guy, right? In this case, Moicano, basically, you're getting the free opportunity, more or less. I mean, there's nothing like free in MMA anyway, but as free as it gets, right? And beyond that, I would say that there was not much of a chance on paper that Moicano was going to win, okay? If they had set that fight like they did, let's say, Sean O'Malley versus Vera, obviously there was a rematch and there was a prehistory, etc. But on that level, if they set this type of fight that they gave Moicano, for whatever reason, a title shot outright, I think he would be there would be a public outcry. Other than in these circumstances, people will be saying that he doesn't deserve a shot, at least yet. And I think in the fight it showed. Yeah, he had a moment, he kind of rocked Islam for a second, but I just did not see him stopping the wrestling. And one thing that you can't do against Islam, that we know already, and anybody who goes up against him should kind of be aware of that, is get up in this new type of way of getting up from the turtle position and giving up your back, and also therefore giving up your front headlock position and letting the guy kind of be in a guillotine situation. The guys have gotten a lot better in defending the guillotines and a lot of the submissions, because most people are now really high level, have really high level jiu-jitsu in MMA. Therefore, a lot of people are getting away with it, and not a lot of people have chokes like Islam Machachev, okay? Therefore, with some people you can get away with that, but with Machachev, you need more of a traditional way of getting up, whether it's going to be, if you have the fence, to use the fence, or whether you'll be using underhook or overhook and also controlling the other arm and getting up from the half guard or perhaps from the half guard position or from the knee slide position, but and maybe even giving up the back the correct way, but that has also proven to be not so good for Volkanovski in the fourth round of the first fight, where he didn't get finished, but he kind of lost the round because of that situation where he gave out the back, and then Islam actually took the back really well. And Islam mixes up wrestling and jiu-jitsu really well. Okay, he fights a lot of his scrambles are more jiu-jitsu-esque than, let's say, freestyle wrestling-esque, like a lot of, let's say, like Arman Sarukian, for instance. And he gets into those positions and he's very dangerous. He takes the back, he goes for the chokes, he goes for the sweeps, and that's something to be aware of. And once he gets his arms wrapped around someone's neck, it's very hard to get out, almost impossible. As far as Arman goes, I have no idea what to tell you. Obviously, he must have had a really big reason to pull out. And I think he's also one of those guys that doesn't want to go into the fight compromised. He wants to fight Machachev at his best. He has mentioned in the past as much, because the first fight he feels like he was not at his best and kind of lost a close fight, and loss is a loss. So now he doesn't want that to happen again. Pulling out on the last day, probably weight cut had something to do with it. Yes, maybe there was some injury which prevented him from finishing the weight. Again, I don't know, it's just a speculation, but definitely a bummer. And I think there would have been a better fight, even though still Machachev rightfully would have been the favorite to win that fight as well. Ilya Topuria has called out Machachev yet again. Let's see if there's going to be some type of outreach from the UFC or from Makhachev's camp, and let's see if that fight can actually materialize. But again, I think, just my honest opinion, again, I don't know how his weight cut is going or whatnot, but I think Ilya does have something left in his division. He has been in some like two GOATs of the division and of the sport as well, but he has contenders coming up. But I think he wants those big fights, big money fights, and for whatever reason, yeah, I'm not going to get into that right now, and perhaps even rightfully so, he thinks that he can beat Islam Makhachev. So let's see. If you enjoyed the video and if you enjoyed the breakdown, please guys subscribe, like and share, and I'll try to push out more content, and feedback would be much appreciated in this regard.